Yeah, hello. My name is David Turner and this is the Lunar Poetry Podcast, and this month I'm in New Cross in South East London and I'm joined by this leery little fucker, Liv Wynter. As always, we're going to start with my guest giving us a short introduction into her work and life and that.
I'm Liv Wynter. I live in New Cross in SE and I'm in my third year at Goldsmiths doing fine art. I write poetry as my art form, as my practice, and I guess I'm like interested a lot in hip hop. I guess more than maybe poetry, but yeah, I write as an art practice.
That against you, but you can stay. It's right.
Yeah, I write as an art practice, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I was going to start with. I find myself a lot now starting with like disclaimers that I know these, but it's obvious I know people. Like, that's where you've been. But so Liv and I have known each other for a little bit from poetry and like performance art nights, and we met a few weeks ago to discuss the possibility of recording the podcast together. So during the chat, I might refer back to a few things we've discussed before. The majority of what I hope we can talk about today will be for the first time. I only mention it because we try and keep things as spontaneous as possible, but I am reading from a script. As I say, we're keeping things spontaneous. It's printed out in front of me. I haven't asked Liv to prepare for this, other than the chat that we had before. But now that's out of the way, I just have a question. I suppose. Where do you feel like? Where do you feel, if at all, do you fit into the poetry scene in London?
I think it's quite. I think I personally, as an artist, find it quite hard to locate myself with a definition, because I guess definitions are made of like, words have definitions, and definitions are made up of like rules. So I find it really hard to call myself a spoken word artist or a poet, because there's things to do with those words that maybe I'm not so into. I kind of like, for example, sometimes spoken word nights I find can be such an uncritical space, or a space where like, I mean, it's great that anyone can get up. I feel like I'm digging myself a hole already, and I've been talking for about 2 minutes. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call myself a spoken word artist. I feel like it's got a lot of like theatreiness to it that maybe I'm not into. But also, like, there's class issues with, like, now with spoken word poetry, different from, like, when it started and it was, like, beat poetry and stuff like that. It's kind of, a lot of people I know that are spoken word poets now are, I don't know, middle class drama students.
Okay, that's interesting. Because, of course, I mean, that's obviously based on the people that you've met, and the scene is huge. And
the scene is massive.
And I assume you know more about the scene in London than anywhere else in the country as well. And I'm not actually questioning your opinion, just sort of trying to put it in as kind of setting. But do you find your problems with being defined as a spoken word artist, do you feel like that exists in your own? Are you putting that pressure on yourself, or do you find other people are putting that on you?
I think that probably every day someone will ask me what I do, and I every time have to be like, well, I'm an artist, but I guess you could call me a poet, or like I do this and I do that. And I guess I have to argue quite a lot to defend why what I do is art and not just but poetry or something. Like it's art, it's an art form, like and why it deserves, for example, a lot of my shows are in exhibitions and galleries as opposed to poetry
we
slams.
first met, didn't we, at a performance art night down in Camberwell. It was run by Julius Massey, and your stuff fitted really well, I thought, in that scene. And Paul McManamy, the editor of Lunar Poetry, we were down there together, and we both agreed that it would be really interesting to see you then in a sort of proper formal poetry.
Yeah, and your night was my first. That was my first poetry night.
Which I said to you, we spotted you first. So what did they say? When you blow up? Is that what you say?
Yeah,
you blow
yeah.
Up?
When I blow up. Definitely.
Yeah, don't forget us. But see, I personally didn't see any difference between how you fitted in at the arts night in Camberwell or our night in Waterloo. But did you feel like there was? Did you feel like there were any barriers particularly between the two, or any differences?
Yeah, I mean maybe like I felt I like a rowdier night. I'd rather be in the pub than in the poetry slam. I think that people at that art night, like they were shouting and cheering and people were like really into it. It was more like reactive.
Well, Paul and I discussed actually that night on how we don't know many poets that would have been able to get up on that stage in front of that audience, because it was pretty lively, wasn't it?
Yeah. They're rowdy as fuck. Yeah.
But it was good. It was a good atmosphere. Yeah. But actually, I just want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about how you said that you felt that poetry nights traditionally, or the ones that you've experienced, are not critical enough. They're maybe too welcoming. And do you want to talk a bit more about that?
I feel like I feel like just because someone, I try and compare it a lot to like what I'm doing as an artist. And if someone comes into a space like where everyone's showing work, and someone shows something that is really shit, we will talk about it and we will talk politely about it and work out what it is that this work is missing or why it's not achieving the things it's supposed to be achieving. Whereas I find in poetry, like, you're just going to get a clap and a pat on the back because you've got up. And as an artist, that's not really a very productive thing to experience, because if no one's going to have a conversation about how you can improve, then you're relying on yourself to be your own critic, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you miss the massive things that you're not getting across, and like maybe a poetry night isn't the space for that, but I feel like if you've got a bunch of poets in the room, why aren't you talking about poetry, I guess, maybe, or like talking about what you've been watching, you know?
It's it never fails to amaze me how little poets talk about poetry. In a critical sense, you know. I think, because I come from an arts background myself, and I actually agree with you on these points pretty much wholeheartedly. One thing I would say, I think artists are a bit quick to forget that how they felt the first time they were critiqued and how awful it is. And you get used to that. When you go to art school, you get used to the critiques and you realise that it's not an attack, it's not a personal attack, it's just someone's opinion. And really, actually, they're doing it to help, you know? And because that system doesn't exist in poetry, I think it's just, at the moment, it's just terrifying for poets, because, you know, quite often they're bleeding their hearts out, you know, and it's not always done in a particularly interesting way. Yeah. But it's a difficult and emotive subject, isn't it, for a lot of people, you know, to suddenly, and a lot of them don't want criticism. You know?
No,
but I do. I mean, I think, I don't know how you feel about this. I've often felt that it would be good to have a defined open mic scene where there is no criticism. You are allowed. You know, like with classical music, you have recitals which are often early in the morning. Yeah. And there's an acceptance that there will be mistakes because people are practicing a certain piece of music in order to then go on to a concert. You don't pay as much to get in, and there's an acceptance that it might be a lower standard of performance. And then you go on to have the higher standard, where you're completely free to then have as harsh an opinion as you want. And I think maybe that, I don't know, something that like that, you know, because you can't start going to open mic nights and booing people.
No, but I mean, like, I never would. But like, I guess I'm thinking, like, in relation to experiences where I've performed recently, where people do shout at you, or like, you know, there is that intense involvement with the crowd. Like, you'll know straight away whether something you've said's worked or not. You know, like, you'll get it from the crowd. But I guess, like, sometimes, even at a poetry night, because we're all being really respectful, which I guess is probably good, but you can't even tell really from the tension in the room or like the sound of people.
No,
like,
absolutely.
I've done lots of performances where I've done a poem which I know is quite funny, but maybe I've gone on too early in the night and people haven't laughed yet because they're not drunk and I'm talking about dicks or something. People don't like it, you know, like, and people won't laugh because it's too much of a like precious kind of space instead of a space where we can like. Because I get the catharticism of like getting up and pouring your heart out, but to do that, I don't know, every week, like without ever being told anything about it, seems like I don't understand how that is like a productive thing, especially if you want to be like a poet.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was actually like through a discussion about these subjects that the podcast started was because of this lack of discussion, and it isn't actually. I think what people miss the point of, it's not, when you say critique, that doesn't mean criticism in like if you're studying art, having a critique of your work doesn't mean you're going to be criticised. Just means that other ideas are going to be suggested to you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We're not. I don't think any of us. I say us as in the poetry and discussions that we have. None of us are suggesting that we should heavily criticise poets.
No,
there should be more of a discussion. You should be more able to approach people and give an opinion.
And like it does sometimes. If you do try and do it, it fucks up. I tried to speak to that dude at your thing, and it was not appropriate for me to do it at all. But like that's what I mean. Like you get really used to being patted on the back. You get really used to it the moment you start doing poetry. You get really used to people being like, well done. Like not even it was good, like well done, which is really different. And I kind of quite quickly, like, I don't know, I come from like a performing background. I used to be in bands and stuff. I'm used to being on stage. I'm used to being shit. I'm used to being bad and having flopped sessions. So I kind of really quickly got quite distrustful of this like pat on the back. But then in an art space, people will give me critique. People I've never met will come up to me and be like, love that first poem, didn't like the next one, didn't think that went down so well. Like people will do that, and I will grow from that. But you're right. I mean, I guess I've got pretty thick skin, and I don't mind when people tell me they don't like stuff or that they think things should change. Yeah. And maybe that's because of growing up in like a critical space or something.
Yeah, but also it can just be personality, can't it? Some people are better placed to take shit from people, whereas some people are just much more fragile. And I've got a question here, and I've just suddenly realised it doesn't really. I don't know if it makes any sense to me. What am I trying to ask? Is there is there a difference between not having a place and not? Yeah, I know what I mean. Is there a difference between not having a place and not being welcome? You know what I mean? Like you could. Do you feel that that's what I'm trying to ask. Do you feel that your style is just too different at the moment to a lot of nights, or do you physically, has anyone made you feel unwelcome because of what you do?
No, I think that the problem lies in that me, politically as an artist, deciding where my work's going to go. Like being invited, for example, to do decent poetry nights at the Amersham Arms. I won't go to the Amersham Arms because the bouncers are homophobic. Right. I won't perform there. Like, there's various places and venues that I'm like, or artists, people that I'm like, no, I won't work with that person. I won't work in that space. To make a point, like, you know, they're my words. I have to stand by them. I have to stand by where I say them. Yeah. There's no point going and doing a feminist piece of poetry in the Amersham Arms where they hit girls in the face before. Like, what's the fucking point? Yeah. So in that way, I guess I'm pushing myself slightly away from the circuit. But there's also like tropes of like poetry, like talking with poets. Like a lot of my friends are like, you know, they'll describe the nights as like spiritual and stuff, which is fine, but it's not me, and I don't really prescribe to that, like that sense that like us as all poets should all just be like totally carefree, cool guys. Like, I don't know, like I don't really know what that's doing. It seems a bit blasé to like take that standpoint. I've never been made to feel unwelcome anywhere. I've been made to feel a bit like a token, like the blurry working class chick, quite a few times. Yeah. And I've definitely been asked to do shows where it's been like, and art shows where it's been like, oh, we're trying to represent like people that are misrepresented. We'll get Liv in because like, you know, she's obviously very working class, and we can put her in there. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
You've got a very definite look, you know, and you know, your background and stuff, and the way you sound and the way you talk. It's, I mean, I don't really know how I would deal with it because I'm not very likely to have anyone pay any attention to me. So I don't know how I deal with like being pigeonholed in that sense. But yeah, it's a difficult thing between using things to your advantage, aren't there, and being put in a box, you know, because it's about self-awareness. It's about talking about it, like, because, you know, people for the same reason are like, you know, I'm a female poet who looks the way I do, like covered in tattoos, like making quite like obviously feminist poetry, like that's a massive box in itself, like, you know, and it's really easy for people to like sweep me under the rug with that, like, you know, just like Larry feminist stuff. But then there's something I think in the poetry that stops people from doing that maybe comes from like my reference points being different things. But yeah, it's really easy to get pigeonholed. But if you embrace it, I've got this thing coming up with Vice, and I know that they've just asked me to do it because they just want to like
I don't know, point at me a bit. But like, I know that, so I'll probably write a shitty poem about them, and then they'll have to film it and put it out, and it'll be really funny. Like, I think sometimes you've got to take that attitude with it as well, because every platform's a platform at the end of the day, and it's what you make of it, I guess.
Well, you're only going to be pigeonholed if you allow yourself to be anyone, aren't you? And
that's why I think I'm reluctant to like call myself certain things.
And do you find that's why you feel? Is that another reason you feel more at home in the art scene?
I feel like I can defend myself better in the art scene, because I know the things that I care about, and I know what my work's about, and I know the works that I'm interested in, like an art space, and I know like where I stand politically. But maybe with poetry, I find it harder to like work out what other people are about as well. Maybe sometimes, like with I don't know. It's definitely a question that I can't answer yet.
Yeah, that's probably been over that enough anyway. Maybe we should have a poem from you.
Okay, cool. Well, that's funny. I'll do this one. Fucking artists. Congratulations, because you've successfully fucked an artist, and well done you. You managed to find the working class chick. I think that means in some way this pussy actually left you more authentic. I think it means that when we was going at it quite relentless, I was supposed to be thinking about politics or censorship. I was supposed to be thinking about my personal subjectiveness, but I was quite distracted trying to remember whose fucking bed this is. Congratulations, mate. Because you just fucked a poet, and your contribution to the arts is almost heroic. You know, by going down on me, you could be going down in history as someone Liv Wynter once cussed out on an EP. You know, you're not really smart enough to actually objectify me, but you are arrogant enough to think that you're inspiring me, which, quite frankly, I find tiring, G. You have to realise, you don't even exist in this poetry. You are only represented in the generous flows from me. Now, do you trust me? Am I a reliable narrator? Or am I just a bitter ex-hater, debater, dictator, or an active infiltrator into your fucked up behaviour? Congratulations. You fucked a curator, painter, political campaigner. Nah, break it down. We was just fucking strangers. Congratulations, though. Because you've managed to fuck a creative. And you've managed to impress the boys you're with by going on home with the Larry chick. What though? You think you tamed this scary bitch? Please, stop taking all the fucking credit. Yeah, I said it. Because the people that think I owe these words to them, they got it twisted. These are my words that I wrote, that I fucking listed. It would be a push to say in any way you even vaguely assisted. So don't take my eloquence and use it in your own defence. All you did was get me incensed at your own expense, which is incredibly fucking easy to do, by the way, pissed off and rude. Yeah, that's how I spend the majority of my day. These witty one-liners, boo, they're going to happen with or without you. So maybe don't look into my poems for any clues or resonance of you. Well done, though. Because you just fucked a rapper, and you've unlocked your special move, and it's this, the slow clapper. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I've got flu. I thought I should explain. I'm flu right now.
We've got the flu. Everyone's got shit dripping out their face.
It's gross, isn't it?
Yeah. At least I haven't got any jewellery catching mine. I really like that poem. Thank you. I think that was probably the first one you did actually at the night in Camberwell.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
And it was brilliant because it was in front of a room full of artists going, because of course that's not us. So.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Cheers. So, I was just trying to work out like what we've already talked about. We'll move on, and actually from that we'll move on and talk about the subject matter of your poems. You know, like you said, your work comes from a very strong feminist root, often dealing with issues around body image and sexual and physical abuse, subjects that you've had personal experience of, and you've obviously got close friends that have been through the same thing that you write about. I just want to ask you about how you, and also you mentioned about like not wanting to play certain venues because of homophobic staff and stuff. How do you reconcile that stance with your obvious influences from hip-hop, which most people would accept as being mainly, there's a view that it's mainly misogynistic or homophobic. Also, it can be a lot, you know.
I mean, I've been into hip-hop for a long time, and I've been a hip-hop head forever. Like, there are massive problems in hip-hop. That is very obvious. I will also say I don't think that, like, standard white art school feminism is doing fuck all for people getting shot in the street in America like 16 times by police officers. I think that you can be I couldn't necessarily ignore the fact that a lot of the stuff I listen to is very anti-women, but like racism is a massive issue. Yeah. Like I think is what I'm trying to get at, and like the implications as well. Like feminism as well is like about trying to avoid like these binary issues, and like the pressures of being like a black man are fucking insane. Like the pressures of getting out of a ghetto or like living a certain lifestyle, getting money through a like white supremacist like society which tells you like violence and abusing women is what's going to get you away from this like horrible place. Like that's unavoidable, and hip hop is a product of that. And like I kind of think that that's really important, like that these people have these voices and things will catch up. Like Bell Hooks talks about it really well, because she's like, you can't just hate like the black man for making this music when you've told him it's his way to get out of like a a violent space, and then be pissed off like when that happens. So that I can't deny that hip hop is like can be fundamentally anti-women, but then also like it's changing now. Scenes are getting bigger and changing, and there's big gay hip hop scenes now. There's female rappers now that are doing really well. I mean, there's still only ever supposed to be like one female rapper, which obviously is Nicki Minaj at the moment, but like we're still obviously all made to. She's the one, she's the one at the moment. But I mean, hip hop's fucking amazing. At the end of the day.
Do you think that question comes more from a lack of understanding of both hip hop and feminism? What hip hop is now and what feminism is now? Because I would assume that people have got quite outdated view of both.
I think it comes from a place of people thinking that to enjoy something means you're not critical of it. You know, I love hip hop. Doesn't mean I don't think parts of it are bullshit. It doesn't mean I like, you know, one of my favourite songs that I get up and dance around to in the morning is A Bitch Is a Bitch by NWA. It's just this dumbass song where it's just them just slagging off women, but they're saying stupid things like, she talk about you behind your back and tell your friend she's fat, and it's like, it's hilarious. It's so ridiculous in its like hatred, but I can understand that it's fucked. Like I can grasp that. So it's like I love grime music. Grime music is like my obsession, and people want to give me so much of a hard time for it, but just it's coming from a different place. Like maybe like, you know, I go to my school is full of middle class people who would look down on grime because they just see it as like a violent, nasty thing, but like that comes from institutionalized racism and classism. Like, and if you you know, it's really easy to just dismiss it all as a thing, and that's kind of a bit stupid.
But we also spoke recently about, or you mentioned that you probably don't hold the feminist views that people would assume you hold, and that you have found, you've argued with tutors in the past about the stance you take over your feminist views. So can you talk about that for a bit, maybe?
Yeah, for example, so like Don't Flop recently, the rap battle thing, which I'm sure we'll talk about probably later, but like one of the verses in that, the first verse, is all about me having sex with a girl, and like there's certain people that would say that's anti-women, but I would say it's not, because I haven't described I haven't done anything without someone's permission. I've spoken respectfully about having sex with a girl, which is something I've done, and it's not anti-women to be vocal about stuff. Like some people still don't want women to talk openly about having sex, or like wanting to have a one night stand and not giving a shit, and like as long as everyone's happy in that situation, like sexually, then I don't really think there's a problem with that. I think as well, like people do sometimes, I used to always say like I write rap. I wouldn't really say that anymore because of the implications of like what rap is, and like I got a lot of friends who are rappers who are like, you fucking don't. Like, and that's fine, I respect that. But I used to say it, and people had a real problem with me saying it because they were like, well, like we said, rap's anti-women. So, but like I also think that there's no correct way to be a feminist. I would never say to someone like, I don't think you're a feminist because you don't follow what I think is like a feminist stance.
Yeah.
It's as a word, it's so loaded, but it's also so important that everyone who feels they can use it just uses it, because there's no correct way to be it or to associate with it.
Yeah.
I don't think.
And just to come back to the hip hop thing again, not really about the subject matter, but more have you found what do you think the response has been to your poetry so overtly referencing hip hop? Have you found it has been positive or negative?
It's funny because it can separate a crowd sometimes. Like some of my early stuff that I don't really do anymore. I used to not write poetry really. It just used to be like more monologue stuff. Yeah. When I was doing that had a lot of like actual like bits where I'd say like I'm listening to my headphones and like I'd rap other people's lines and stuff. And it could really split a crowd because some people would get it and be like, what? Like, and that would have a little moment, but a lot of people wouldn't get it. I don't know, like, I think that people also understand the importance. Like, a lot of my work is about taking up spaces where you're not really supposed to be. And I think using this style is part of that. You know, it's not really a style that was ever intended for me to use. Yeah. As a woman, so it's quite fun to then own it. Like, that's why I get really into it, even though I don't think Nicki Minaj is that good. I think she's a badass because she just writes all her own shit and is like making millions off it. And she's taking up a space that people don't really want her to take up because we're really used to like even like generally speaking, like poetry or painting or something, they're very like male dominated spaces. Like, I think it's important to go and be like, well, fuck you, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a bit cheeky because we talked about this before, and you know it's not really my opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. But so what about people who say, well, rap isn't poetry, so what the fuck are you doing?
I say that's fucking stupid, isn't it? Is my response. I say open your fucking eyes a little bit. No, I mean I get it. Like I like when I ran away to Devon recently because I was like sick of the city, and my friend was staying in Devon, so I ran away, and he's a rapper, and we were talking about open mic nights, poetry nights, and he's like, yeah, I bet I could get up and I'd like drop some bars and I'd look the way I do and everyone would fucking go crazy. And I was like, yeah, maybe you're right, maybe you should do it. And he's like, yeah. And then he started rapping and I was like, oh, I don't know, because like it's quite misogynistic, you are talking about beating people, oh, I don't know, like, but the standard of, if you get rid of the context, the standard of what he was writing, his wordplay, like his ability to like actually write something sick was incredible. Like, I think people could learn. Like, I did like a poetry workshop thing with this other guy who writes, and we were like, just everyone did like a reading and we kind of wrote stuff together, and people were like picking up on like, I don't know, rhyming patterns in some of the stuff I was writing. They're like, where did you hear that? And I'm like, in grime. Like, you know, like they use patterns that have come really like they've generated these rhyming patterns that haven't spread anywhere because no one wants to really listen to it. So like that should, like, people should steal that shit. Yeah. Definitely. But I mean, I don't know, like rap poetry.
Listening to young people's music though?
Huh?
Does it involve listening?
Yeah, I don't know that you would get down. But I get what you mean. The other thing we were talking about that I've been going crazy about is like my stuff written down doesn't make any sense. Any sense because of all the hanging on a note or like, you know,
because
pauses.
That's what we were talking about, wasn't it? Actually, when we got round to like actually having a proper discussion about it, was that thing that, you know, if your rhymes are relying on you extending a syllable or counting a double beat in the middle of a sentence, how does that look on paper? Yeah, but then but that doesn't actually mean that you can't have poetry that only exists in spoken word form, because that's another discussion. It was just a way of looking at it rather than it being an attack on rapping. It wasn't what I meant. It wasn't that, because you know, I've listened to rap songs.
Have you? Have you really? Them, Where did you find them?
They my friend's older brother made me listen to them. I didn't want to listen to them.
Did you hate it?
Yeah, he made me listen to NWA. It's just I find it's a hard conversation to have sometimes with people that do reference rap a lot. Is that outside? Is there a chicken next door? A real chicken? Sorry, I just got really distracted. There's a chicken in the garden next door. We're in South East London, there's a chicken next door. You heard that as well. What was I saying? I was a fucking chicken. I was talking about NWA and there was a chicken clucking at me. No, what I was going to say was it's hard to have this discussion with people that reference rap a lot because I think, feel like they're being attacked by poets for not being good enough, and I don't think that really that's the point. I think
but
that happens a lot.
It's the class connection. It's the class connection.
Yeah.
Rap has come from a working class thing, and so did poetry. But poetry's migrated now, and it's doing its middle class bougie shit, which is fine. I should probably stop being so dismissive of it, but you know, it's poets can kind of like I don't know. It's someone like Sol Williams who's like an amazing poet, but is also a rapper. And he kind of navigates his space really well between the two. And, like, you know, hip-hop heads and rappers, like, Nas is, like, Sol Williams is the guy. And then there's also, like, poets, like Kate Tempest, who's, like, Sol Williams is the guy. He navigates in that space really well. But he kind of also was there when poetry was changing and forming. So he had a really good way in. Mm-hmm. And he went and did, like, rap at poetry nights, you know? And, like, they went crazy about it. But, like, yeah, like, I guess now because... Also, you do have a split. Like, I maybe don't go to as many poetry nights as I would go to a hip-hop cypher and watch that, or like a battle rap or something, because that's much more my style. So I don't know, like, I guess like the class aspects of it, it's quite easy for like a bougie middle class poet to be like, well, it's just rap, and like a rapper to be like, well, fuck you, it's just poems. You know?
Yeah, I think what I find odd is that there is a divide, because we are all just saying words out of our mouths.
It's just words, isn't it, at the end of the day?
I mean, a division does come when things are on paper, because you're looking at them in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there can't be an overlap between the two either. Actually, we're going to move on and talk about sort of image, sort of a long... but before we start that, maybe we should have the second part.
Yeah?
It's relevant here.
Okay. Bear with me. If it sounds whack. Okay, this is called Outward. Normally, I combat it by shopping. I eBay at 4 a.m. those things that make me whole again, you know, it's posters mainly of Nikki or Kim. But for hours I just sit, scroll, skim, because fuck what I spend. I got this image to mend, hair to extend, I got some budgets to try and bend, and it's funny, isn't it? Or not. This ability to be impulsive on things like clothing, but I can't decide what to eat for like 3 days. So I don't. And instead I'm emptying my fridge again, gone off food next to an empty bottle of gin, and yes, I'm aware of the cliche, but I think I'm comfortable in them. Inside that cliche. School, work, play, that's me, that's a cliche. And on the way, I'll get maybe a gingerbread latte. It's my favourite coffee, by the way, and I hold it tightly in my hands, but in my head I start to pray, like, please let this thing taste the same. Let it live up to its name. Let it not feel the shame of when I bring it to my lips only to put it down again. Let no one who's close to me realise this game of pretending to drink or eat. Because these are things that my body needs, and it's not exactly stress, you see. It's kind of more boring than that. It's damp, it's flat, it's not exactly stress, you see. I don't know, frustration, maybe, because no one's fucking texting back to me, and yes, I'm aware that I'm the one who's acting erratically. I'm needy, I want time, attention, I'm greedy, touch, body heat, physicality, feed me, I'm craving something explicit, yeah, I want it explicitly, not you, not that, please, just come and stand next to me, laugh. What, am I not being funny? I said laugh. What used to me being funny? Well, once more before you, I am betrayed by this body, because I'm always taking up too much space, and I really want to be small, delicate, elegant. I want to move with grace. I want to elevate. I want to transcend from this negative space. I want to be real and fake. I want to be intelligent, but I'm talking in fucking cliches again. And I know I sound stressed, but I'm not stressed. And it feels like when you stay up all night from the glare of the Mac light, or your TV's been on for hours. I don't really remember why. I'm aware of this air around me, inward, outward, as I sigh, and in that, yeah, I am aware of this consistent nothing by my side, but I'm missing what, you know? Interchangeable girl, guy, tick another box off on a binary life guide, stimulating conversation maybe, or at best an emotional high, but shouldn't I see something reflect? When you look back into my eyes, man, you look bored, and you look tired, and maybe the artist in me feels like I should leave you just a little bit inspired. You know what, are you tired? Because you know, you don't really say much, and you just let me stumble around these words whenever I'm drunk, but I'm trying real hard to learn to outward this inward funk, you know, outward. because that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to fucking carry it around with you. What? Because it's a feeling, so it's something supposed to be out of my grasp. There's shit I want to ask, but I can't for this fear of overstepping some kind of mark outward. Only I fucked mine up. Because mine's become a projection, and I know it's my defection. It's too much affection with injections of aggression, disconnection, rejection. They are the natural selections. I'm just lost, and I'm sorry with no sense of direction, making massive mistakes in my signal detection, constant second guessing. Conversation with friends is just time for dissection, hoping someone will make some kind of generous interjection before I say something fucking stupid to bring up and mention. And I know I sound stressed. Maybe I'm stressed. But in learning to be outward, I just became overexposed. My body doesn't hold any meaning now, and I've gone all fucking heato. And as the light continues to shine, I continue to absorb that glow, but it leaves me distorted, translucent. I've got this shit stagnant flow. I'm tripping over my syllables now. I can't seem to get these words out. I'm tripping over words like, oh, go, flow, what? Haven't I got any good poems to show? Where is my sense of development, though? I'm lost in this vocabulary. You leave me nowhere to go. And these dictionary definitions, they're just leaving me unsatisfied with all of these adjectives I keep clawing at when I'm trying to find the tip of my tongue is sharp, deformed, and unkind. And how will it ever say anything delicate when I've put a fucking metal bar through it? It's like these words, these words, they're not heavy, they're just weighted, and they fall flat to the floor before they get to you, which leaves me here still unstated.
Thank you very much.
That must have been very different from what you've got printed out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got the poem printed out because it's always awkward when you don't realise the poem's finished. But I also have it to reference back to. But yeah, it's quite a different version. But actually, going back to this idea of when you drink the gingerbread latte and you pray that it's going to be the same as it was before, and this idea that fuck yeah, you're looking and you've got the Starbucks cup or whatever, and you're hoping you haven't just bought the cup, and it isn't just an image. Do you think we're all worried in some way that artists that we love are only an image, and then do you think there's a fear that we're suddenly going to discover that there's nothing behind them, and if there was to be nothing behind them, is that a problem?
I mean, I'm obsessed with pop culture. Like, I spend a vast majority of my time watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I've got posters of Kim Kardashian all over my room, in my studio. Like,
my dad asked me about Kim Kardashian the other day, so she has gone like proper.
Oh, dude, she's huge. That's my chick. But like, she's amazing, and like, it would be very easy to argue that she's vapid or like there's nothing there. But obviously that's impossible, I think, personally, to be a human and be entirely vapid. And also, I'm not going to go on a Kim rant, but she's basically a genius. But, like, I don't know. Like, for example, when I was writing my dissertation, I keep talking about Sol Williams, but I love him. But I got this book by him that he'd written, and I read the little bit at the beginning where he's talking about himself, and he just came across like such a dick, and I was so upset that this dude that I loved just sounded like the most arrogant man in the world, especially when his like poetry is so like real, and then he just sounded like just so arrogant. Like, he had a whole page where he just drops everyone's famous name that he's ever like met, and I was like, this is shit. There's a pressure to live up, but there's a pressure to live up to your image, but also you put your image on purpose, right? Like, there's a reason that I perform in fake Chanel head to toe every day. Like, it's part of the kind of it's part of the performance for me, and I would argue with most people it is. And like, I don't know, aren't we all performing? Like, I hate to get all arty on it, but like, we're all performing all the time.
Well, no, actually, this brings us nicely on to the next question. Actually, or next topic. If you could talk about your previous body of work as a performance artist and your alter ego. Okay,
you're outing me right now. Okay, so before I used to make art. I used to make art. Before
until you learned.
Until I learned how to not. Yeah. I made art that was about wanting to be a rapper. It's really funny. Like, now when I look back at it, I'm just a series of like self-fulfilling prophecies. I like decided, I want to be famous. What can I do? Sex tape, rap. Like, okay. Decided I wanted to be a rapper. Started making loads of fan art about myself. Started making flyers for fake gigs. And t-shirts, like everything, like crazy shit. made loads and loads of CDs that were just blank that I like sold and made money off, and they're just blank CDs, and people would still message me and be like, love the EP, and I'd be like, there's fucking nothing on it, but like it's just part of it. And I used to go to exhibitions with security guards and like turn up at like some next little exhibition somewhere, which like all full of like people that obviously know me, but obviously people that don't as well. And like turn up with security and bottles of like fucking champagne, like scout around the exhibition. No one was allowed to talk to me. Then I'd go and like my space would be like a set up merch stand with all the like merchandise on, and I'd have a PA. No one was allowed to talk to me unless they asked my PA to have a like photo. But it just went a bit weird, and like there's lots of people.
Oh, it then went weird.
Yeah, and then it got weird. But yeah, we do stuff like we just turn up like dressed up and try and get into places with security guards. Because my friend is an actual security guard, like they let security guards in, but to people in the queue, it looked like I was getting in, even though it was my mate being like, yo, can we fucking bring this chick in, like whatever. But it was really funny, and I think like, and then I was like, I'm gonna be a rapper. I told everyone. Loads of people thought I was a rapper, and then my tutor was kind of like, why aren't you just being a rapper? Like, what is this that you're just not actually just doing it? And I was like, oh, I don't know, like this is really important that I don't make music. And then summer happened. I worked full time. I was working like 60, 70 hours a week. I didn't have time to make any art. Didn't have time to go to any exhibitions or be anywhere. Like that work was very much about being in places. And then I started writing rap, and now look at me. But like it's funny. Like in my first year of uni, Kate Tempest did an artist talk, and I asked, and we did the questions, and I asked her if she wanted to battle me because I knew she used to do battle rap. And she was like, no. And like I obviously didn't do anything at the time. And like I just did a battle rap the other day. And then in my second year, I was pretending to be a rapper. And then I just started like all these weird self-fulfilling like little prophecies in a really bizarre way.
Well, that brings us neatly on to talking about rap battles.
Yeah, shall we?
Since you're already up. So, I keep calling them hip-hop arguments. But they're not, are they?
That's hilarious. A hip-hop argument.
Yeah. Or contretemps, whichever you prefer.
I like it. Shall I explain what it is?
Do that, because I think most people, because obviously it's quite prominent in the poetry scene because of Mark Grist and Scrupulous Pip as well. Although he doesn't battle, does he? But he
bigs them up a lot.
He bigs them up. No, but like obviously. Count Monte Cristo, whatever his name is, he's big on the scene, and his videos on YouTube are massive, aren't they? Like, he's had millions of views. So if you, but for those who don't know, maybe explain and then tell us what you did.
So Don't Flop is an organisation that put on events of battle rap, which is 3 rounds, one person against the other, trying to make the other person look like a cunt, basically, for like X amount of time. They blew up kind of along with Mark Grist. There was a battle with Mark Grist and Blizzard that went viral. And then actually they've been working alongside King of the Dot, which is massive in Canada. Same thing, battle rap. But now it's fucking massive, and there's incredible battlers that are doing incredibly well. And standard like main channel videos are getting like 50 to 100,000 views, like easily. But it's I used to love battle rap. I absolutely used to love it. I used to watch it every day religiously. I thought it was the best thing in the world. I love watching people make people look stupid. I think it's great. But kind of as time went on, you kind of realise there's only so many jokes about like homophobic, anti-women, rape, violent jokes that you can listen to before you're like, this is whack. I recently went and battled Pedro, who's big deal. I got respect for Pedro-ish. No, I think he's alright. He's good. But like he, I got offered to battle him, and I said yes straight away because his bars are really anti-women generally. Like one of the things that I always find about battling is I respect a battler more if they just have a go at the person in front of them, not their sister or their mum or their best friend standing behind them. Like in battle rap, you're putting yourself out there and going, come on, let's fucking go. So to have a go at me, like not the person around. Whereas Pedro doesn't really ever attack the person in front of him. He kind of just attacks their miscellaneous others around them, which I think makes him a bit of a pussy in my eyes. So I wanted to battle him. They let me because they thought I was going to go up when I applied, I sent them some feminist poetry.
Yeah.
So they just thought I was just this Larry feminist with no sense of humour. And they wanted to kind of sacrifice me to Pedro. But then I got there and I was pretty fucking good.
Kicked his ass.
Yeah.
And my favourite story about, my only story about rap is you'll see Mark Grist at a comedy night, and he explained about the first night he did it, and he was trying to come up, he didn't realise you needed a battling name, or like they asked you to come up with a battling name. So he punned on his name and came up with the Count of Monte Cristo, right? The guy misheard him in the noise and introduced him as the cunt of Monte Cristo. It's brilliant. So for the whole night, he was the cunt of Monte Cristo. But no, but it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because I know that I've seen tweets and video messages going between Scroobius Pip and Mark Grist, and the reason Scroobius Pip wouldn't battle him or get involved was because of the inherent homophobia and misogyny, and he didn't feel like he. But it might be because you're female that you feel better placed, because you're not actually going in and being part of it. You're going in and trying to fight against it in a way, aren't you?
Yeah,
Whereas Scroobius Pip is going in as a man and just being part of the boys' club, isn't he?
But like, it would be easy for a male rapper to go in there and do something that shook it up, but they don't want to. And my problem with battle rap is it's not catching up with the rest of the world. Like, battle rap is still fucking using really dumb jokes and stupid shit. And like, when I went there, the experience of being there for the whole day was really draining, and it was really like a negative kind of experience. Like, I don't want to slag off Don't Flop because I love it and I think it is great, but it needs to catch up. And me being there with my friends who are like, you know, queer artists and stuff, they didn't know what the fuck to do with us. They were so shook about us just being there, which is retarded. I don't understand why they're really proud of creating a space that is really homophobic or scared of, and I genuinely think it's homophobic in that those people are scared of gay people. Like, they genuinely, it freaks them out. That's ridiculous. But me being there was a political gesture of like, I went there and I stood there and I was like, I like my first verse, I'm like, I know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to call me gay, you're going to tell me I'm fat, you're going to say all this stuff about me. And that's exactly what he did. And there's even a part in like his second bar or something, you know, he's trying to do it and he's like, you've already said that. And I'm like, yeah, like, because I know exactly what you're going to say. I know what I look like, and you are blatant as anything. And my bars were just all about being like, how it's not insulting to call me gay. I'm not insulted. So every time he said it, it then didn't really work, because it was like, well, I've already told you. That's not offensive. And like, just dissecting the fact that like, he's got a big reputation because he's a freestyler, but what's the fucking point of freestyling if what you're saying is shit? Go home and write something. Basically.
I couldn't agree with that. It's very right. And actually it annoyed me that Scroobius Pip had taken the stance to not get involved, because I think it would have really highlighted the fact that if he and Mark Grist had gotten up and done a full battle with no homophobic references and what I would assume would be very clever, very well thought out rhymes, and quite insulting towards each other without all that shit, it would have proved the point that you could move all of this on. And so it's a shame. But what he was worried about, he said, was because he's obviously quite famous, his persona or whatever will ultimately advertise the art form or whatever, and he doesn't want to do that. I don't know.
I think as well, like, it's, if you like, I like to set myself stuff that I know is hard, and like for about, like, I could quite easily write a verse that was just really nasty about someone's girlfriend. I know how to speak in that language. I've been surrounded with it by it forever. But like, setting myself the rules of being like, right, you've got to write like 9 minutes of stuff which doesn't make a single reference about him being gay. It doesn't make a single reference about him having a small dick or about his body. It doesn't make any references about people that aren't here. It's like not sexist. Like, setting yourself those tasks makes writing it a much more rewarding process.
Well,
because it's difficult.
It's
you know?
the same as an artist, setting yourself rules, coming up with manifestos, and actually limiting yourself quite often allows you to be more creative, or forces you to be more creative, doesn't it? And I think it's, like you said, it's a much more rewarding thing. We'll go on to the last couple of questions now. What has influenced you most as a performer or writer?
Working on a bar.
Yeah.
I work for a company called Underbelly, and they're amazing, and they totally put up with all my Larry feminist shit, which is amazing. Like, I've worked on bars forever. That's always been what I've done. And majoritively, like, I write about working on bars as well, both in like poetry, but generally I do a lot of writing about working on bars. And they're really volatile spaces because as a barmaid, you're kind of initially taught that, like, you know, you get the same spiel as like the customer's always right, and, you know, smile sweetly at the people that are pissing you off, and it's kind of quite an anti, like a standard like country pub is pretty nasty space. It's normally full of 50-somethings that are like homophobic and anti-women, and that's that. And like when I moved to London and I got this job with Underbelly, like the way they run their team and like the way they support people was amazing. I had beefs where like I remember in my first couple of weeks someone like reached over a bar to grab my boobs, and I just was like, what the fuck, and like went to punch this dude in the face, and then he'd gone and I like ran out and I was obviously really upset, and they were just like, what a fucking prick, like let's go find him, like, but like not to beat him up, to kick him out, but like
throw him in the river.
Yeah. But like it's interesting now because I got promoted recently working for them, and so I still obviously work on the bar, but I also like look after other people that are working on the bar, and it's amazing the shit that people think they can say to you, like because people think they're entitled to the service of being served at a bar. Yeah. So I've had people say all kinds of shit. You got your clip pierced? Like, let me see. Like every other day, you know, like that's just standard like go-to lines, and I'll be like, okay, fuck you, not getting served. But there's thousands of people that work on bars that would never say that and wouldn't react that way, and it is actually really distressing to have people talk to you like that. And if I'm lucky enough to be next to someone when I can hear someone talking to them in a way that is really inappropriate, I will always step in. But lots of like people don't feel safe to do that, and like our company puts on a lot of like burlesque and cabaret, and as a result of that we have a really liberal like work team.
I was going to say I'd be surprised that it happens so much there, because you do get the impression from, I haven't actually been there, but I know what they put on there, and it seems like quite you know, having something to say about your appearance when going into that venue. It just seems like
exactly
the kind of shows they put on.
It's because it's in South Bank, which is such a city boy place, and like the people that go into the venues, yes, are probably very nice, but the drinking areas outside, it's just city boys that are going to pay £6 a pint, like, and they are the most entitled people in the world, and they are used to talking to women like shit, and like people nodding politely at them. But yeah, I think that's probably my biggest inspiration, because it's working in a bar teaches you to pick your battles. There's some shit that I don't pick up. I'm not going to be like, please don't call me love, like, because I don't really give a shit. Like, yeah, it teaches you to pick your battles, teaches you how to speak to different kinds of people. Like, you hear 1,001 good stories from 1,001 different people. You see crazy stuff. Like, it's a really good space to like generate ideas from.
And is there anything you would recommend for our listeners to go and see or watch or listen to or ignore?
Me? Go and Google me. No.
Liv.
I don't know. What am I listening to at the moment? I will always say go and check out some grime. It's the best. Go and listen to some Skepta. It'll blow your mind. He's a genius. Go and listen to some Sol Williams. He's great. I don't know, like, I kind of find myself more and more not reading and writing. I don't know, I find it really hard to be reading and writing at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm working on a piece of like poetry that I'm going to perform, I can't watch any like spoken word stuff online because it just bugs me out. So I don't know, I guess like I just spend all my time watching grime music videos because they are the best. Watch the All Stars remix by Skepta. It's the best thing you'll ever see.
Okay. So that's that. Cheers, thank you. That's all the questions. That's,
wicked. We did
it. Left for you. I'm empty. I'm spent. You've destroyed me. Like Pedro.
Fair.
Well, not like Pedro.
No.
He was completely fucked. Wasn't he? I'm at least walking out of the room. Yeah. We usually take this opportunity to, if you want to mention any blogs or Twitter accounts or.
Oh right, yeah. Shit.
You're on Twitter, Liv Wynter.
Yeah, at Liv Wynter, Wynter.
I will say everything you mentioned now will be in the link in the description of the video on YouTube or whatever.
Okay, right.
It'll be somewhere. So
I will also say, like, definitely watch Me versus Pedro because it will make your day.
Yeah. So if you follow Liv on Twitter and found a tongue at silent_tongue, because we'll post that video as well, because hopefully by the time this goes out that will be online.
That will hopefully be out,
but I'm not sure, neither of us are sure about the date on that. Also, I wanted to say, because in your poem Outward you reference Hito Sale, don't you?
Yeah.
And what's the
just
article called again?
Heat of Style, in defence of the poor image,
Yeah,
and
it's a great article.
Amazing,
it's
isn't it?
It's about the degradation and undervaluing of images, and as things become more digitalised and widely spread, images online become degraded, but our own image becomes...
And it's really important in reference to like as poets, like how we document ourselves. Every time we video ourselves, it's getting further and further from the source. Like, read it. It's really good.
It's really fascinating. I'm really glad that you actually, when you sent me the poems, you actually told me the name of the writer, because I wouldn't necessarily have looked that up. But so there'll be a link to that somewhere as well. But her name is Hito. HITOSTEYERL.
Yeah, that's it.
And in defence of the poor image or something like that. But it's
amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you, Liv. That
Thanks.
was great. And follow her on Twitter, and then you can find out where she's performing and stuff. And